Thanks for joining us at 9 News Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. Real estate prices continue to mostly steady across the country as interest rates have rapidly climbed over the course of the last couple of years, as most of you are probably aware about. But lots of people, of course, have not been able to purchase a home in the Denver area during the real estate boom of 2020, 2021 during the pandemic. But some of those people maybe have a better shot at buying a home now, with prices perhaps steadying, although interest rates have obviously climbed quite a bit. Kelly Moye from the Colorado Association of Realtors joins us now to answer some of those burning real estate questions that you might have about the Denver area real estate market right now. Kelly, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on 90s Plus today.
Absolutely, happy to.
So Kelly, I guess starting point, how would you broadly assess the state of the Denver metro area real estate market right now?
Well, I can broadly assess it in that we're kind of in correction mode right now. So we experienced about a 35% appreciation in the last 2 years, and that was not sustainable, and we knew that. And with the interest rate increase, it changed our market, and it really gave us the adjustment and correction that our market needed. So our prices are down about 6.5% right now since January. So we're experiencing a bit of a correction market. It is not a buyer's market yet, but it is definitely correcting, and the prices are coming down a little bit.
So maybe you said it's not a buyer's market yet. Would you assess it maybe fairly even Steven between buyers and sellers at this point, or is it still maybe sellers have the leg up?
This is the tough one. This is one that realtors talk about every day, in that the numbers and the graphics actually speak to a seller's market. So our average days on the market is still around 30 days for Denver. That's absolutely a seller's market. Our sales price to list price is right around 100%, like 99%. So sellers are getting pretty much what they're asking for. But if you're actually in the market like we are, we can tell you that it's not a seller's market, that buyers have more opportunities to negotiate. They're actually negotiating on inspections a lot more than they used to. They have opportunities in terms of less competition for listings. They have a chance to look at it once, twice, maybe bring mom and dad back. We never had that before. So it is on paper still a seller's market. In real life, it almost feels like the buyers have the upper hand.
Interesting. How would you compare, Kelly, again, fairly broadly here, compare what's happening in Denver compared to the rest of the country? Is Denver better, worse off, or how would you compare it?
Well, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert on everywhere else in the country, but from a broad perspective, I think Denver is better off only because our economy is very strong. And while we went up quite a bit in terms of purchase price over the last couple years, we didn't go up as high as some areas. So our chances of falling are less than other places are. Not only that, we have a great job market and a beautiful place to live, and the quality of life here is strong, and the demand to live here is still strong. So Denver seems to fare better than other places where they had big highs and big lows.
With all this in mind, and maybe with prices at the very least leveling off, Kelly just mentioned that prices have dropped about 6.5% since January, which is certainly at least a starting point. But even with those prices even declining a little bit, the Denver metro area 7-county metro region's affordability rating is at an all-time low since the metric first started tabulation back in 2010. What is behind that? Is it just the fact that prices and incomes are just unequal at this point?
You exactly said it perfectly. So the affordability index is a metric that shows where housing prices are going versus the wages that are typically offered in a certain area. Our wages in Denver have not kept up with our home values and rent values. So it is increasingly unaffordable to live here. And even with a minor 6% off change, it is just not even close to something that would put a dent into our affordability issue, which is really a challenge for both renters and homeowners here in Denver. And we're just nowhere near being able to make that affordable again based on a typical wage here in the Front Range.
With that said, obviously maybe people who may not be able to afford to buy a home may turn to renting, as you just mentioned. What is the rental market like right now, and how does that compare to the home buying market at this point?
Well, the rental market is, I'll say strong, but it depends on which side you're on. If you're a landlord, you're doing pretty well. Rentals, the prices are going up. I think they've gone up about 3.5% this year. But that being said, they went up 5.5% last year. So we're seeing rents go up, but just not quite as quickly as they did before. But keep in mind, you have all these buyers or potential home buyers who are hoping to get into the home buying market who can't now or don't want to because of the high interest rate. Well, they have to live somewhere, so they rent. So the rental market is actually pretty brisk at the moment because we have a lot of people who want to live here, and if they feel like they can't buy with the rates where they are, then they rent instead. So the rental market continues to be pretty competitive as well.
I guess, and this is admittedly delving a bit more into the financial aspect of things, but given the fact that inflation seems to be roughly leveling off, and it seems at this point that maybe interest rates may not continue to climb. Let's say, hypothetically, that interest rates increase maybe only marginally or basically level off over the rest of the year. How do you expect that to impact the Denver area real estate market? I know, again, that's a fairly broad question.
That's okay. I like pulling out my crystal ball when I can. I think if the rates stay the same, which I actually think that they probably will, I think you're just going to see sort of a plateauing of our market. This market is an opportunity for buyers, and I'm not sure that a lot of buyers realize that there are loan programs out there and concessions that sellers are willing to give to buy your rate down. So if you're waiting to buy a place because you're waiting to get in the market for a good interest rate, get in the market now. There are ways to get a good interest rate today. Lots of them, actually. So I think buyers are missing the boat here because as soon as interest rates start to go down, and that may be next year, we'll have to see how inflation goes. But once they do, you have all these people waiting on the sidelines, both sellers and buyers, who are going to jump in the market all at one time. So if you're a seller or a buyer, you're about to have a lot more competition once those rates go down. We have this pent up demand that is just waiting for like a 6.25% rate or something with a 5 in front of it. Oh my gosh, we're all going to be crazy. So there's some opportunity here if people, can kind of step back and realize that they're not married to the rate. You can buy the rate down, you can maneuver the rate, but the house itself, if you can get a good deal now, it's a good time.
And I think that kind of goes, I think we discussed this before. The old adage that I've heard in real estate circles is marry the house, date the interest rate,
Date
correct?
the rate. Right, right. Well, we say it, but it's hard for people to actually wrap their heads around. So if you're a seller right now, you're somebody who you just had your third baby and you need more space, but you have a 3% interest rate. It's really hard to picture taking on a 7% interest rate and moving. So you tend to stay. But what you may not realize is builders out there are offering some really unbelievable incentives to get people in at 5 and an eighth. I actually did one yesterday for that rate, 30-year fix. So there are programs out there that allow you to make that move, but I think people don't realize it. And they are sort of married to their rate. They're sort of married to their rate. And what they really should be looking at is if this is an opportunity to get into a market that is not quite as competitive, they should take it.
Absolutely. Well, I guess maybe closing things out, any tips broadly for buyers in this market as well as for sellers? How would you look at it from both perspectives?
Okay, let me think about that specifically. Well, one thing, just sort of a general comment would be if you look at seasonal market trends, which is a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to wait and sell in the spring. It's a better time to sell. Or I'm going to wait and buy in the fall because the market's down in the fall. That is almost always true until now. So 2023 has just been completely different from the other years because instead of following seasonality, our market has followed interest rates. So we never got that spring market. We never got that tons of inventory and lots of buyers out there and a crazy market that then slowed down in August. Has not been the case at all. And as we get into the fall, if we see rates start to decline a little bit, we're going to see more houses on the market, almost like a spring. So this year is just a complete anomaly. Our seasonality in our typical trends aren't necessarily the case in this particular year. So I just think that's pretty interesting. And if you're a buyer or a seller, don't count on those typical markets that we expect to be good times to buy or bad times to sell, as an example.
Generally, oh yeah. Sorry, go ahead there, Kelly.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is pretty interesting from overall. Any kind of final things to add? Any final tips for, again, buyers, sellers out there?
Okay, my tip for a seller is price is everything. It always has been, it always will be. But in this particular market, we are seeing it decline a little bit, but it's still incredibly strong. And if you've owned your home for at least 3 years, you've made a whole lot of money on it. So pricing your home properly, and even not to comps 6 months ago, maybe not even 3 months ago, but a little bit less than those, is probably where you'll need to be to get it sold. And hopefully you've made a lot of equity, and there's some room in there to do that. And for buyers, I would say, try not to get so hung up on the rate. Negotiate with the seller to help pay for a buy down. Talk to your lender about different opportunities for adjustable rate mortgages and ways to refinance for free. They're all offering stuff like that so that you can get a good rate now and get in kind of while we have some motivated sellers. So I think that looking past the headlines and seeing what the market really looks like is super important for both parties, really.
Absolutely. It seems like there's at least some opportunity now for buyers and for sellers, not as maybe decidedly one side as it was 2-3 years ago, where sellers had all the advantage. So
it is not as one-sided.
Absolutely. Well, Kelly Moye from the Colorado Association of Realtors, we appreciate a few minutes of your time and lending us your expertise about the always fascinating Denver area, metro area real estate market. Thanks so much for taking some time to join us here today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chris.